So welcome everybody, thanks for coming out. I am really excited about this panel. When Matt invited me to moderate, I kind of nerded out. I was like, well, this is a cool opportunity to talk with leaders in a rapidly evolving field, intersection of technology and media. And I'm ready to dive in. I come from like the more creative background of creating content, working with screenwriters and filmmakers, but I've always been just fascinated about like where we're headed, and there's a couple areas that I'm really excited to talk about. And then we'll open it up to the audience, so if you have some questions, hang on to those, and hopefully we'll get several from you guys as well. So let's just go down, and everyone can introduce themselves, just kind of, say who you are and a little bit about your company. And then I have questions for each of you.
So I won't be too redundant. So Matthew Helderman, Buffalo 8 and BondIt. On the Buffalo 8 side of our business, we're a traditional production, post-production, and management company, producing primarily feature film content and commercial content. And then on the other side of our business, BondIt, we're effectively a media hedge fund, so working on single picture deals all the way from micro budgets to studio level participations, and then also working on corporate financing structures, and we'll dive into that as well.
Hey, I'm Straith, and I am a digital strategist and artist advocate, formerly the head of creative initiatives at BitTorrent. While there for 4 years, what I've been focused on with my team is building a direct-to-fan distribution platform. Today, that platform is used by over 40,000 creators, labels, and studios, and it's also used by over 200 million fans around the world.
Hi, excuse me. I'm Mike Greene. I work for GoPro. I'm the executive producer of content partnerships. I oversee the global content and production for the GoPro Red Bull relationship, which was signed July 1st. My throat is really thrashed because I was just at a 5-day mountain bike race in the middle of Zion, so excuse me. Obviously, for those of you that don't know GoPro, we make cameras.
Hi, my name is Roderick Scott with Warner Brother Records out in Burbank, so it was kind of a trek here, but we're here, we made it.
You made it.
I handle media relations and lifestyle marketing for the label for the urban pop and dance acts. Media relations, which are paid and earned media campaigns, lifestyle marketing, connecting bands, brands, and fans through experiential activations, and just overall greatness. I love the job. Got some coworkers in here, Warner Brothers.
Hey, what's up? I'm Mickey. I'm actually homeless. They found me on the street and pulled me in. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Jash. We're founded by Sarah Silverman, Reggie Watts, Tim and Eric, and Michael Sarah. And we're basically a support system for comedians. We help to fund projects, help to distribute them, help to create partnerships for them.
Hi, I'm Robert Stevenson. I'm the head of content strategy at Oculus VR. We do VR. We pretty much invest in content. We build content, a little bit of content internally. We work with a lot with game creators, experience creators, film creators, and my job is to manage that portfolio, structure, do the investments, help with the creative side of it, to drive a VR and AR future.
Awesome. And just kind of brainstorming the very eclectic group that we have here, because we have people, from music to, emerging technology to, content and finance. I think an interesting place to start is content and platform. And I think I'll just ask each one of you, right now you can take turns answering this, but do you see your company primarily as a content platform or a platform? Are you mostly focused on either curating or creating content, or are you focused on providing a platform? And also how, if you're a content company, how does that inform the platform that you choose to distribute that content? And if you're a platform company, where do you get your content?
Yeah, I guess I can tackle it first. We are I think the two businesses have very different strategies. On the Buffalo 8 side, we're very traditional in the sense of the most frustrating thing about the film business, I think, is that it really hasn't changed all that much in the 150, 175 years. It's sort of looked very similar. Even though you have things like Netflix disrupting it in a large way, it's still incredibly development and labor intensive from start to finish, and the distribution of that product, whether on a platform or in a traditional means in a theater, has a very hefty economic weight behind it, meaning without a big P&A and print and advertising spend, films have a very difficult time of ever breaking out and reaching an audience, and even Netflix to some degree has struggled with that. And so I think when we think about innovation on the Buffalo 8 side of our business, it's a challenge because you're effectively operating within a system that has had the same bones for 200 plus years, give or take. And that is, again, a challenge. Now, we have worked with folks like Netflix, and the focus has been how do you build that relationship to a level where that's really the core of the output, meaning the theatrical model is dead except for specific type films. How do you target the relationship, again, Netflix, Amazon, et cetera, where they're going to wholly finance and reach a very large monthly audience? On the BondIt side, I sort of see us as a platform of sorts. We're not a content creator, we're a finance company. We've really tried to build a platform that, and a brand as well, that invites a very much open door policy for frictionless access to capital. And by that I mean the traditional access at banks and institutions has become really laborious, especially post-crisis. And so building the kind of company where a producer or a production company or a commercial company or an MCN for that matter feels comfortable having the conversation and telling us the story about how our financing can impact the content they're creating. To us, I see that as being a groundbreaking opportunity as, like you've said, the field is just exploding.
So for us, we're very clearly a platform. The idea behind the platform, and sort of any platform, a platform is a technology with a point of view. And our point of view is that creators should have options and agency when it comes to the stories that they share. So BitTorrent now is built for filmmakers, it's built for musicians. We can distribute 4K, virtual reality, basically any kind of file can be shared via BitTorrent now. And with that, we wanted to build in options when it came to monetization, right? Understanding that every single content that hits the web will have a different business model was critical for us. So the ethos behind the platform is to build in as many of those resources as possible. So you can use BitTorrent to share your work for free. You can share work in exchange for an email address. All of the email addresses go back to every creator who publishes in. Or you can run ads against your work, or you can sell it directly. But in order to create value, you need access to all of those options, and that's kind of the ethos behind the platform.
Interesting.
I think it's a really interesting question for GoPro, because obviously we're GoPro and we sell cameras. But obviously one of the things that we're, I think, known for is the high quality content that we put out from our cameras. And just now, August 31st, we launched a channel on Red Bull TV, and then in Q1 of 2017, we do launch our own OTT platform. So we're definitely seeing within our businesses a merging of sort of content and how we sell and market our cameras. So for us, it's the platform and the content does become part of the marketing, but it's also sort of one and the same, so to speak, because I think as people, especially our core audience, sees what we do and the quality of what we put out, whether it's mountain bike footage or skateboard footage, or even now we're reaching more mass sports, but it's always been about the quality of the content. And I think that we're always going to stay to that level regardless of the platform. I mean, you can see what we're doing now with our partnership with Red Bull and having a channel on Red Bull TV and trying to how do you make yourself different from everything they already have on there? And I think it's always about quality, and that's sort of our mandate.
I think similar. I mean, we are definitely content curators and producers over at Warner Bros. Records, but I think in music in general. I think what's interesting from that, though, is you brought the prospect of being a platform. I think for the industry to survive, I think in its next incarnation, they're going to have to figure out a way in order to become also a platform for the content they're putting out. And my job specifically is how do I market that content once we actually have it there, getting it to the right hands, the right people, the right platforms, I think to have the stickiest, impact on people. But yeah, definitely, I think that at a certain point, you understand that is your leverage, what you have, I think, with people, and it's figuring out how do I attribute, value back to the content that we are actually creating, knowing that it is viable, and there's a lot of hands that are involved in doing that and getting it to the right people so that I think it becomes more effective. So,
I mean, what a time to be both, right? It's like, there's so many platforms, and there's such an advantage to being a platform, to having an audience, to growing an audience, to be YouTube, to be Facebook. I mean, what a time to be a content creator. Think about all the different platforms that you can now sell to, right? For us, it's kind of this beautiful world where you get to, pardon my French, it's you can kind of fuck. You can do whatever you want to do, and there's not really some established rule to it. So it's kind of the fun is for us at least is playing with being one in one situation, playing with being another in another situation. You work with someone now. For us as this, as the producer on a piece of content, you get to create something without that in mind sometimes, and then get to mess with it after the fact. You can be both content that is marketing content and content that is being monetized, right? You're monetizing your own marketing, which is kind of ridiculous. That's GoPro to the T. It's you guys have created, you're creating a brand at the same time as you are creating content that is then selling your product. It's kind of this beautiful symmetry. So I think that if anything, for me, for us, is I don't want to answer that question. I don't ever want to have to answer that question.
Yeah, I have sort of same feeling, but Facebook fundamentally, Oculus fundamentally is a platform. We're building a platform for other people to exploit, content creators to exploit and do stuff with, and we're obviously a huge aggregation of user-created content in terms of photos and videos, 360, music, all this kind of stuff coming on the Facebook platform and also into VR. However, we're in the sort of early stages of potentially a new multi-billion-dollar industry, right? So there's a flywheel effect we need to build in terms of content. We need to help people prepare content, help fund content, help people produce it, learn all the technical things that are needed to do to solve problems and challenges in VR and AR, right? The basic jargon of how do you shoot a film has to change. Some of the acting methods have to change, these kinds of things. And there's no way to do that without actually going and doing it somewhat yourself and learning it yourself. And so we're very engaged in the space. We've built cameras. We're out working with content creators across video games, across film, across 360, to get them into VR, to get them into Facebook 360 and exploit what is effectively a really large distribution platform. So we're learning along the way, and if we build content to do that, great. And we'll take those relationships, and hopefully those relationships will have a spillover effect to help other people build content and drive the industry forward.
Interesting. The next theme that I want to throw to everybody is data, and data in terms of data-driven content development, so responding to your audience and being able to, with a fair amount of agility, adapt the content that you give them based on the feedback that you're getting from them. How do each of your platforms allow for collecting data, and how will that inform the content that you create?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'll quote a colleague who couldn't join us tonight, but I have a good buddy who works over at Netflix and has been there for about 6-7 years or so. And the most poignant quote he made to me about data and how it's really informing Netflix's decisions, which ultimately is trickling down to the rest of the film industry, is that when he joined Netflix about, again, 7 years ago, he would have looked at it as a 75% entertainment company, 25% technology company. But if he looks around the company today, he would actually reverse it. He'd say, even though they're releasing a huge amount of entertainment, more so than all of the studios and networks probably almost combined, they're 25% an entertainment company and 75% data, and from a technology standpoint. And I think that's fascinating, and I think I would like to believe that we're innovative enough to try and adapt humbly some of those principles. But I think for us as a finance company in the media space, it is, as Mickey said, it's a really exciting time to be around. I'd say my general day-to-day of seeing everything from a publishing company to a sports transaction to an MCN to a content creator on a GoPro platform to a feature filmmaker. There's so much out there, and being able to aggregate that content and that data in terms of who's involved, who's financing it, what's the distribution strategy to help us make more informed decisions as a financier will become a very big component. And again, I understand it's the finance side versus how people are making creative choices from a content standpoint, which these folks can probably answer better than I can. But I think from where we sit, there's so many options out there that to say that we're aggregating data and it's looking, the chart is looking heavily weighted in one way or the other would be a lie. There are so many ways in which these deals are being put together that it's a fascinating time.
Yeah, so for us and as a platform and as as a team that's been working directly with the creative community, it's become very clear that data access is absolutely one of the human rights issues of our age. And if you're an independent creator and you don't know who your fans are, you don't have a point of contact, you don't know what they care about, you don't have that profile, there's absolutely no way that you can build a career in the arts right now. So our approach to data collection is that everything that we collect goes back to the publisher. Every email address, every interaction. Anybody can look at their stats portal and have an answer to the question, what do I do next? And that's really important. So that's been our approach to building out our stats portal, being able to resource creators with the tools that help them understand their audience, with that email point of contact that allows them the ability to reach them directly, and with the information that they need to be able to not just assess the value or the impact of a current campaign, but to be able to plot out and achieve success with the next one.
I mean, for us, analytics are really important on the social side. I mean, we obviously have very exact analytics on our Instagram and our Facebook and everything. I think what's really interesting now for GoPro is having just launched a channel on an OTT platform and then having our OTT launch in Q1 is how those analytics are going to look compared to our social analytics. Because again, I'm not sure that the two will meet. That's something that I'm really excited to find out. We haven't seen, we just launched our channel on Red Bull TV August 31st, so we haven't seen any of the numbers yet, but it's going to be really interesting to see if sort of the core numbers, and when I say core, obviously for GoPro and Red Bull, it's a lot of the skateboarding, snowboarding, those kind of groups. It's going to be interesting to see if they match up. And so I think for us, it's a learning strategy because you're talking about it's two things really for us. So, and I don't know if anybody else knows about OTT numbers because I'd love to get more info myself. But, again, on the social side, as you were saying, I think YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, it's been very easy and very transparent. I think where it gets at least murkier for us is when you start getting into the OTT and how that breaks down.
Is it just because each OTT platform tends to be a little bit private about their numbers?
That's my thoughts, but shh. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm sort of asking questions here, but.
I think data is just very important to what we do as far as figuring out, how effective our content marketing strategies or campaigns are going. I think social media gives you an immediacy on exactly if something's working or if it's not. I think you can take those numbers from what happens in the engagement level on that social side and reapply it to your campaigns and better optimize them, I think, to target a better audience from that. I mean, we have this conversation all the time. Is it better to get 2 million passerbys or 2,000 very strong, active, loyal niche fans that are going to go out and engage the way that you want them to? So I think it's very important to understand that and use that to evaluate what kind of campaigns that you're going to put out there, as well as just figure out, again, what do we do now once we have this? I mean, I'm looking at an example of Spotify. We had an artist who wanted to put out a song that was 10 minutes long, but what came back as the creative part and the hard conversation with that actual creator was that there is a pass or a drop-off point at a certain point where after 3 minutes and 30 seconds, this person doesn't want to listen to the song anymore and they skip. Unfortunately, that affects where you are playlisted in Spotify sometimes. So therefore, you have to figure out, is it more valuable for me to have this 10-minute song or more to make sure it's 3 minutes, 30 seconds and it fits, I guess, in this framework to make sure it sticks and stays with these playlists. So that's one example of it, but I think it definitely helps in in a space where it used to rely, I guess, on your partners to come back with the data. And let's say if it's a print magazine, it's a very good glossy, you know what I mean? There's a million people that read this magazine, and then you spend all this time and energy courting and actually figuring out, does this work? Whereas you post something up, you get a premiere and exclusive, you can see how many times it's shared, commented, liked, retweeted. You understand that's the best partner for that, or should you use them for later on another campaign down the line? So, very important.
For us, it's a little bit, I would say, kind of our secret sauce is like, you look at a lot of these other comedy entities and they're very much kind of like I feel it's like a front door solution, right, to a comedy club. It's like you go to like a Funny or Die, you think like digital comedy, you think like Funny or Die, College Humor, or The Onion, or whoever it is, and it's like, you go inside that door, you follow that account, and you get one very specific brand of comedy. Jash, for us, we're kind of like the back door to like 90 different comedy clubs, and we can add a new one every single day, and we get to then give them like, hey, here's 20 other comedians that you'd like. But that also gives us the data for all those different comedy clubs, right? Like I have information on how Norm Macdonald's audience performs, but then I also gain a whole bunch of information on how the Cooties, the up-and-coming sketch group, performs. Completely different audiences, and I get to measure those audiences across as many platforms as I can, right? I get to see what Amazon's gonna give me, I get to see what Facebook's gonna give me, I get to see what so-and-so is gonna give me, whatever new platform it is, and I can kind of compare and contrast that, right? Obviously, the more data that I can get, the better, so my own platforms, as we start to push more towards that, are going to be the ones that I hopefully will be able to gain the most insight from. But in the interim, playing data sets against each other is incredibly valuable. On the other end of it, though, you sometimes kind of have to forget it. Like that's like this thing that I think it's kind of getting lost in this age of like technology and content kind of merging together into this like hybrid weird love child thing. It's like, sometimes you don't want to do something that is just formulaic. Sometimes you want to do something that is a complete risk, that you have no idea if it's going to work, and more often than not, that's the thing that ends up popping, right? It's like I worked, before I was at Maker Studios for a really long time, and was the original producer on a show called Epic Rap Battles of History. Epic Rap Battles of History is like the epitome of like a formulaic show, right? Like you know exactly kind of like what you're gonna get. It is, okay, we pit this against this, we have to get to the intro in this period of time, we close it with this kind of call to action to the audience that fuels comments, that drives engagement, that pushes the show kind of further to the top. And when I left there and I first started working with my partner, Daniel Kellison, who is with me over at Jash, Daniel produced David Letterman for 8 years, created Crank Yankers, The Man Show, Jimmy Kimmel Live. He's like, knows kind of everybody in comedy, and he likes to make weird shit. Like he likes to make weird, out of the box kinds of things because that's what he believes in as like a content creator, as a producer. One of the first projects we made was a project called Gregory Go Boom. And it was the first thing, as we started Jash, that Michael Cera brought to us, that he was like, hey, listen, this is a thing that I want to make. It is a short film about a paraplegic man who is incredibly racist, chauvinistic, kind of like just a weird dude. He goes on a bunch of different dates, eventually finds one girl that's willing to sleep with him, goes back to her house, gets kicked out of the house because her boyfriend comes home. She throws him out of the window. He is, again, paraplegic, throws his wheelchair after him. He gets into his wheelchair, wheels himself into the middle of the desert, lights himself on fire. It's called Gregory Go Boom. This is like the darkest comedy in the world. It's 20 minutes on a YouTube channel that does not exist yet, that we're gonna release this. My brain is like, what? This is like, there's no way. Like, that's not how YouTube works. But it's like, okay, well, let's find a way to do it. Let's find a way that we can get eyeballs on this thing, and like we'll use this to kind of build the channel. It got 1 million views. It won Sundance. It like gave us a whole new line of credit that we never had with the filmmaking community. Not to mention Michael, who is an amazing content creator who then sings our praises to everybody else who gets that much more invested in what we do. That's way more valuable than the thing that I created that was like, hey, let's make this 6-second Vine that like follows all the rules of like how to go viral.
Yeah, I'll build on that a little bit too. I mean, obviously at Facebook and Oculus, we collect a lot of data. We share that data back with our content creators. But I'll say in the VR space in particular, we just don't know what we don't know. It's very early. Oculus Rift launched in March. Gear VR launched last November, so we're not even a year into commercial, consumer-ready VR yet. And this is a multi-year, 10-year kind of plan, right? And so when we're out there looking at content, bringing content on, could be game content, music content, film content, we just don't know what we don't know. And so we're out there taking risk, maybe not quite at that level, but we're out there taking risk with the let's talk. But we're taking those risks, and we're looking at the data, and we're saying, hey, this is working, this is not working, right? So we don't know totally today what, the modality that people want to experience VR experiences in. Do they want to see it on an airplane? Do they want to see it while they're waiting for the bus? Are they going to put it on and when they're like standing in the bank line? Unlikely, but just where people want to, where they want to do VR, right? We're looking at that kind of data. What kind of things, what kind of experiences do they like? We have 20,000 plus 360 photos. And we see when something happens in the world, news event happens, that people go and look at those photos, right? So we know there's connections to those kinds of things. But the actual kind of content that people want to engage in, the formulaic sort of, oh, this is how it will work, those rules are not defined yet, and that's one of the exciting things about being in this space, is that almost anything can work, and some of the things that have worked have been surprising to us. Both in we're bringing a lot of people to bear to this. We're bringing a lot of game industry people, a lot of film industry people that have an understanding of the traditional rule sets and are going, hey, we should try this, hey, we should try that. Will comedy be fun in VR? We don't know yet. Like, let's fund some experiences over there and let's see the reaction. So the data today, I would say it's still early. So we're looking at it. We're looking at it down at a very granular level. Like when you look at a 360 video, like where are people looking? Like how long do they engage? Do they gaze at this thing? Oh, there was a sound triggered over there. Are they following that sound, right? Some basic stuff that you would want to know, right? And then we're looking at it, it's narrative arc. We produced a piece with the NBA Finals recently that is 26 minutes long. The average engagement time in VR has been shorter. Like people are not, in 360 videos, they haven't been that long. They're like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? So people are cutting off because that's as long as the content is. So we put out a longer piece. We'll put out more long pieces. We'll put out episodic, serialized pieces, and we'll see, what's the uptake. And eventually we, obviously the belief is that someday we'll be looking at full featured films, 2-hour films. You'll go into the movie theater 10 years from now and you'll watch the 2D rectilinear stereoscopic version, or you'll get some lightweight pair of Ray-Bans and you'll watch the 360 version, or maybe you're in the film, live with the rest of the audience, right? So we think that's the future. We're going step by step, trying to figure out, okay, that was the right move, that wasn't. Let's put a little more over here, let's put a little more over there.
If I may, it's like that's like the most, that's the fun on the other end of it as the content creator, is that like you get to play with platforms, right? It's like you can find partners that are looking for that experimentation, want that data set, want to find those things that do work. And like for us, like it becomes the name of the game, right? It's like being nimble, being able to offer something out to a community of people that are content creators that have brains that work in a very different way than yours and I's, that we can say, okay, hey, listen, here's some technology, right? Like we have this thing. We have now, Jash created a virtual comedy club, right? And we had Reggie Watts come in and we said like, hey, what would you want to do? Do you want to do a show here? How would you want it to work? And he's like, okay, I want to do it in this way. We set him up in a different room. He put on his headset and like kind of went into town, and it was the largest live event in virtual reality history, and you get to see him in that moment say, oh, what about doing this? And what about doing that and that and that and that? But it doesn't exist if you can't find those partnerships to be able to give that tool, to be able to say like, hey, listen, just go play for a little bit and like we're gonna watch you do it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you get the technical aspects of producing VR content down, the stitching and the proper camera techniques, the proper acting techniques, sound and all that, once you get past that, the content creators have to be set free, right? So they can go and work their magic. And there's up and coming content creators, there's established content creators, and they're all experimenting and doing. And we take that data and we make decisions. The story that I like to tell is on the Facebook 360 side. I think the most watched, maybe after the Star Wars clip, the debut clip, so don't quote me, but I think it is during the blizzard in January last year in New York City, there was a news reporter came through, I think it was ABC's news reporter, and he just had a Ricoh Theta 360 camera. This is a $400 camera. Just stuck it up in the air, recorded it for 2 minutes. There's barely anything else going on in this, and it was the highest trending video. I think it's the second most viewed video, and people sort of like entered this 360 space with, oh my gosh, we got to buy expensive camera rigs, we got to get teams of people, and there you go. And this guy, and there's been multiple examples of this where the technical level may not need to be that great. It just has to be interesting to people. Like how cool would it be to see that blizzard in Times Square at that moment? Even people in Manhattan were boarded up in their houses, right, not out, and this guy's out there standing in all kinds of snow recording this thing. And so we're learning the new rules, we're learning the new techniques, and we'll find gold at the end of the rainbow.
How many people in the audience here, I'm going to do that thing where I'm going to ask you guys to raise your hand. How many of you are content creators? Would you consider yourself a content creator? I mean, we're in LA, so I'm assuming at least half of you are content creators. How can content creators utilize, or I guess the way to phrase it would be, how can each of the companies that you guys represent here be valuable, provide value to a content creator?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, the policy for both companies, like a lot of these guys up here, I think it's kind of the new way of doing business in the space is very much an open door policy, right? Tell us the story, what you're working on, how can we be malleable as producers, as financiers, to add that value. I think the really interesting, and maybe it's a cliched way of answering it is, there really isn't one way we can add value. I think as a producer and as a financing company, finding many ways for us to apply the skill set and the systems we've built to a whole slew of opportunities is what makes us ultimately a value add. Now to be more poignant in how I answer, I think on the Buffalo 8 side, we're producers, right? We're producing content. We have the ability to set up deals with, just like all of these people, the GoPros of the world, the Netflixes, the Amazons, the platforms that are emerging in ways that you do need, as Mickey is referring, having the ability to have that relationship is ultimately what is the critical point for a producer or a content creator, right? Having the ability to walk into Netflix and set up a film, or having the ability to walk into Jash and set up something interesting with their platform. As producers, that's the value we add, and then as financiers, I think it's obvious, right? Access to capital in an industry that has historically, and as we look forward, no one really knows what the rules are going to look like. It's a confusing landscape, and we do everything we can to try and keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that. I think for BitTorrent as a platform, if you're looking at it as a creator, it's completely open. So anybody can sign up and create an account and start publishing. And the important thing for us is, again, it comes down to options. You should be able to share your story no matter what format it takes. I think anybody working in music and film realizes right now that it's way more than an MP3 or an MP4, that there's this entire journey that is beyond the music or beyond the feature that can be captured and shared. And again, we support all of those formats. So it can be something that that's literally as limitless as your own imagination when it comes to what you can share with your fans via BitTorrent. I think the optionality is really important when it comes to monetization. You may have a trailer, you may be an emerging artist, you may be just looking to get your work out to as many people as possible for free or with ads, and that's something that BitTorrent can support. Or if you want to sell your work directly to fans, again, creators keep 90% of all revenue, and they keep every email address associated with each transaction. So you know your fans, you're keeping the lion's share of the revenue, and you can set your own prices. You can choose your business model. I think that's, as a creator, agency is absolutely required in order to get your work out to as many people as possible. And as fans, having the option to engage with creators on your own terms and on the terms that they set and directly is really, really critical.
Anecdotally, and it'd be interesting if everyone could add this onto your answer, like what's an example of a, like maybe the best example of a success story of a creator finding a lot of value with your company?
Yeah, so I think that there might be a couple, and I won't overcook it, but I think one of the more interesting examples that we saw in terms of multimedia distribution is there's a band called Cut Copy, and to mark their music video release, they released the video via BitTorrent, but they also, the video itself was the first video that was shot like entirely using 3D printing. So they included all of the 3D print files as part of that download. So you could effectively like take that, and if you were really, really dedicated, reshoot that, print it, and hook it up yourself. And I think that's really interesting too, the idea that...
so it's sort of an invitation to collaborate.
Exactly, and I think that's like a really, really important part of sort of the way in which the open source movement has unfolded. I think the mark of a successful artwork right now is shareability. I think at its core, like what all of these successful media projects have in common is like they're open source. Like they are an invitation to talk. They're an invitation to collaborate. There's something that is so beautiful about a song that can be endlessly remixed and reinterpreted by fans, about an album like Life of Pablo that may never be done, like that Kanye may always be like tweaking forever. The idea of art is not something that you look at, but instead instead own and shape. I think the idea of art out of a frame is really interesting and really exciting for all of us.
I'll keep it quick just to sort of add this on. So on the Buffalo 8 side of our business, we run a small management company and about 50 clients, half talent, so actor, actresses, and half literary clients, writer, directors. And one of the clients had the life rights to the Rodney King story and had done it as a one-man show on and off Broadway in New York and London and San Francisco, and it had done tremendously well. And again, just one-man show on and off Broadway. Given what was going on culturally, politically, tension-wise in the country with minority police violence, and the fact that this was super relevant, it had the ability to be transferred over to another medium. And whether that was a feature film, whether it was serialized, whether it was episodic, was sort of up for debate. And so we started a discussion with a few different folks, with GoPro, we had started a discussion with Amazon, with Netflix, and tried to see how can this be adapted today for not only getting this story out there, but getting it out there quickly enough where it could still be incredibly relevant. And so we ended up going with Netflix. Netflix fully financed it, and from the time they committed to getting on board to the time the money dropped was literally within 10 days. And seeing someone be able to move that quickly for a full production, and the most incredible piece of it is Spike Lee ended up coming on to direct it. We shot it in New York City as a live camera, multi-camera performance, like a concert film, and Netflix then built the release schedule around the 25th anniversary of the Rodney King riots and the LA riots and the Rodney King verdict. And so seeing how what's going on now in the zeitgeist can be captured with something really interesting that didn't really have a home 5 years ago, you take that to a network, forget it. Maybe 5 years from now it gets a pilot, but Netflix or folks like that have the ability to capitalize immediately.
I mean, I think that's another really beautiful thing. I think what the internet has taught us is that it wants weird, and it wants outside perspectives, and it wants diversity. I think one of sort of the touchstones for us when it comes to monetization is the very first paid project that we released was an album by Tom York. The asking price was $6, and it was downloaded 4.5 million times. And the first Pay What You Want project, and that's, for everybody who's a creator in the room, don't be scared to trust your fans. Don't be scared to work with them directly. As a Pay What You Want project, that was downloaded 1.5 million times, and the average price paid was between $6 and $8. So that's kind of the power of building your audience and owning that network and being able to connect with them directly and being fearless.
I mean, as a content creator, I think GoPro offers really a 360 solution. I mean, we make cameras, we make drones, we make, VR, we're a distributor. We do a lot of UGC programming. From the programming side, we have an awards program that's been really prolific for the last year or so, where people can put in their own GoPro photos, GoPro videos, and win monetary awards. And so for us, obviously, content creators, they're everything. Our company is literally built on content creation. It was the way that we marketed the camera before we had marketing money. So for us, content creation is everything. Some of the people that make the best videos on GoPro have been with GoPro since literally the very beginning and sort of wrote the book on filming with GoPro. And so we're very loyal to all of our content creators. And there's even in my short time with GoPro, there's been some really cool success stories of some of our awards recipients becoming actual employees of GoPro. Their photos were so amazing, they became sort of social advocates, and we flew them to events, and then eventually became, full-time employees. So we're really, that's a huge push in our company is incubating content creators, obviously getting content creators to use our equipment and our cameras and our drones and all of our stuff, but also distributing that content and then keeping those people within the GoPro family.
I think content curators, definitely find a home, in music and what we're doing right now, too. I think it's integral to our business in the sense that we do rely a lot on user-generated kind of content to kind of start with that groundswell, that kind of word-of-mouth marketing in general. I think it's more valuable, to end users when they see their peers, interacting, engaging, or the success story and how their involvement kind of contribute to this artist campaign, which I think resonates with them further, and especially with so much content out there, so many options, it's really cool to see, when you have someone, again, who's kind of plucked from obscurity and now living out their dreams with the cosign of this artist or entity which kind of helped them get to this point. So I think it's very important in that regard. I think also just figuring out, once you understand, I think, the fair level of or how you monetize it, and just making sure, I guess, that the call to action that you're doing on your side, creating it, kind of fits in what the artist does. I think you can kind of avoid those pitfalls where, your video is taken down because it's been, blacklisted or whatever, getting the clearance, I guess, from the label or whatnot, to co-sign on this thing. But I know plenty of content curators who have seen something, and again, because I think music is more of a, oral, I guess, platform or medium, it's how do we kind of bring this to life? How do we visually make this thing? It's the soundtrack to people's life, but what does it look like? What does it feel like? And I think when you have other people that can kind of do that and kind of articulate that for that artist, it helps open up, I think, a new stream of just consciousness and revenue they probably didn't think about before. Then how can you kind of use those people and, I guess, their networks and their influence to kind of help, I guess, add to the legend or, I guess, this presentation personality that you're building at this point. So I think it's very important. I think as you move forward, you'll start seeing more and more. I mean, we're not creating $500,000 music videos anymore. You know what I mean? Especially because, the drop off, within the first day or two, you're like, really? That was someone's salary and, benefits bonus on top of that. But I think now, as you see it, it's about realizing that one person can shoot for $5,000 can have even the same or more impact as what someone did with 10 times the budget. But again, it's more about, I think, quality than it is the actual quantity of what they do with it. So
You should spend $500,000 again. It's a salary on the other side.
So
I think for us, we, and as far as helping the content creator that's out there right now, our goal is obviously it's much more specific to comedy, in that realm, but not to say that there's not a lot of similar entities that exist, as my peers in the space that I can point you in their direction. Our whole, MO, we're founded by talent, is let's put the power back in the content creator's hands. Let's give them, let's give them the tools that they need to succeed. Let's give them this intelligence about these new platforms, because they don't get to have the meeting with Facebook or get to have the meeting with the new platform that's just coming out and is going to exist in 6 months. So for us to be able to say, hey, here's the tools, here's the playground for you to go and be able to experiment with this before this thing comes out, before this thing exists or whatever it may be. That's where we hope to provide as much value as possible. And then funding, being able to build an audience around content that's an unbelievable skill, and that's something that we've done our best to build and bring in experts from every different platform, so that when Sarah has an idea, or when you have an up-and-coming comedian like the Cooties, who I'd highly recommend you check out. They are amazing. They perform here in LA all the time, and they're just starting to get up and off the ground. Is how do you help them to build a presence? How do you help them to build their audience and understand just the simple things around optimization of when you're uploading a video, where are you going to upload it? Why are you going to upload it? What time are you going to upload it? How do you make sure that there's an audience that's already waiting for that video? How can you get shares lined up? Similar, just small things like that, just helpful pieces of, shortcut, So that's really kind of where we pride ourselves, is in not only helping on that front, but then also we're building bridges towards healthcare and building bridges towards, press opportunities and all these other just avenues that make a comedian's life easier. The success story for us comes more, my favorite one to tell at least, is comes more on the content side, because kind of to Matt's point, it's an arcane process, right? The development process right now is in massive need of an update, especially on the network level. It's something where as it sits right now, you work your way, and as a comedian, you work your way up, maybe doing stand-up or whatever it may be, to get into a writer's room, or maybe find your way into the ability to pitch at Comedy Central or somebody like that. You get that pitch to the point where they say, yes, you know what, we like it. We're going to give you a presentational pilot for $25,000, $50,000. That takes 6 months to negotiate or whatever. Finally, it happens. Maybe you're lucky enough to get a $150,000 pilot at that point. Finally, that thing gets tested, another round of negotiation maybe. Now we're maybe a year into this. They say, you know what, let's go ahead. Let's make a 6-episode series. Now you're maybe in the $1 million, $1.5 million range. You make that thing. That takes another half of a year. You put this thing up. Finally, the second episode goes up. It doesn't rate that well, and it's dead. And it goes on a shelf somewhere. Nobody ever sees it. The IP is completely gone from that creator. You have a network that's out $2 million plus on probably the minimum side, and you're out all that executive time, you're out all of the, like, just wasted time for content that is being created for the purposes of entertaining people. It's like, it's just dumb, right? So for us, like, it's a big thing that we hope to do for the comedian community, right? Is like Doug Benson, we have this show, it's called Getting Doug with High. Doug Benson smokes weed with a different comedian every week. It's great. It's like, this is my job. So like, he came to us and said, hey, listen, I have this idea for this show. Like, I feel like it's an underserved group of people that would just love to watch something like this. We made it the next week. Like, we announced the show. We, spent $10,000 an episode to get the thing up and running. We built the audience around it, cold start of a channel. We brought in, sponsors to help to underwrite it, finding new sponsors in a category that these sponsors didn't exist a year ago, It's in its own right, a profitable enterprise, right? It's like we're making a new episode every single week. It's a 45-minute long talk show. It's 3-act structure. We have ad reads that come in the middle of it. At the end of the day, Doug owns that with us. It's 50-50 split. He sees the same upside in the content that we see as his partner in it, and he has creative autonomy. He's making it the way he wants to make it. He's not being told, you know what, to get to that next step, the green chair is funnier than the red chair. Don't care what you say, you have to agree with us. No, he's gonna make it the way that he wants to make it all along the way. We've made the show for, I think, close to 2 years now. We have a massive library of over, I think, probably close to 150 so episodes, amazing guests, Sarah Silverman, Jack Black, The Workaholics, you name it, like, we've had the best in comedy on this show. That's a thing that he owns with us. That then led to us selling a show straight to series at Comedy Central that we just announced this week, called High Court, which you should watch. It's probably gonna be on in January. You didn't hear that from me. We haven't announced the date yet, Q1. Where Doug Benson will, Judge Judy style, hear out court cases. He will then go into his chambers with his celebrity guest bailiff, smoke a bowl, come out and render a legally binding verdict. All because we took the chance on the, like, hey, let's just make something and, like, go for it. This is my job.
It's a good job. We should put that in VR, right?
Not a bad idea.
Our Facebook sort of motto, and we have that at the Oculus side as well, is sort of making the world more open and connected, and that's what we do, the same sort of thing. We let the content creators free. Most of the content that's on Facebook is generated by users, your photos, your videos, that kind of thing. We're doing the same thing in Oculus. We are, of course, spurring this sort of flywheel effect that I talked about earlier for game creators and film creators, but we're not down in the weeds trying to guide them. Hey, what do you think would be good? Is it a green chair, a red chair? No, we sort of push that decision making back to them. But the thing that we love about our content creators and everybody that's sort of been engaged in the platform on the Oculus side really has been, they're on the journey with us, right? Like we're sort of foraging, pioneering a new space, right? And we're sort of out there trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And so we've had some successes. We've had some things that, hey, maybe we should do this a little differently. And so it's a really, really exciting and really fun time. But again, the keys are back in the creators' hands, the developers' hands, the filmmakers' hands. Success stories, we've had quite a lot. I mean, we've had some great games on the platform. Valkyrie, has done well. Gunjack. We've launched like variations on games that you've seen in the console world, but now have been sort of reimagined in VR. So there's a game called Lucky's Tale by a group called Playful that's doing really, really well, and sort of like takes some of the Mario 64 style of mechanics, but you're in VR. You're actually in this world. It feels really cool. And we've adapted Minecraft. Minecraft is viewable and playable in VR. It's quite amazing. On the film side, there's lots of great content. We did a project with LeBron James. We launched last December. You're at LeBron James's house, like watching them do yoga. He's got real world problems. You're watching him train how does he train for basketball? And you're seeing, like, am I standing next to him? And you're in VR. You're like, well, he's really big, right? And that kind of thing, the film creators just went to it, right? They use camera tricks, they use some of the traditional techniques, and they put this whole thing together, and it did really, really well. And nobody like put LeBron James in front of the camera and be at his house. Is that going to be exciting or interesting? We don't know. Same kind of thing, right? It's exciting, it's powerful, it's worked. Well, let's do a little bit more of that. So yeah, it's a very open, connected platform, and I think the next thing, we've sort of teased it out a little bit, at our Oculus Connect conference 2 weeks ago is we'll open VR up socially. So the ability to sort of, hey, let me share photos or videos with other people in VR or other people in AR down the road. That kind of thing will be really powerful, and that will start beginning to get this sort of same ideas that you have when you use Instagram and you use Facebook and Newsfeed. Those same kind of thought processes of how can I build my own content? How can I share it with my friends? Have my friends see it? We're already dabbling with that a little bit now. So if you upload 360 videos and you follow somebody, if I'm following you and I'm watching your 360 videos on Newsfeed and then I'm on my Gear VR, your videos will show up there, right? So I will see that, hey, a new video was posted by my friend. Let me check it out. Oh, this is this cool birthday party he was just at, and it's a very cool sort of social feeling experience. So yeah, it's a very open, connected sort of platform. We try to push the tools out, but we're building platform as we go. We're working with these content creators, and we don't know what we don't know, so we're happy to ebb and flow with them.
Interesting. My last question before we throw it to the audience is about Google. Google is the largest, company in the internet world, and a very powerful presence in a lot of different ways. So my question to you guys is, how do you see your company either collaborating with or distinguishing yourself from Google and Google's services?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no surprise. Everyone, I assume, knows Google owns YouTube.
Or Alphabet, whatever we're calling it now.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's the Google and the YouTube are sort of one and the same. So on the YouTube side, they've obviously had lots of discussions about launching a much bigger presence with longer form serialized content that they're paying for, like a network, or feature film content that they've now started acquiring. I know that there was a big release earlier this week in regards to, I believe, Doug Liman partnering with YouTube to start releasing very, very large scale, tens of millions of dollars type
on YouTube Red.
On YouTube Red. So I think from a production standpoint, we see it as much more collaborative. I mean, I think to fight that Goliath would be very, very silly for us. And there's lots of ways to collaborate with them in terms of, from a production standpoint, from a data access standpoint, not to mention just the amount of tools that I think Google offers every one of us up here in many different ways, whether that's access to data, access to audience, access to analytics that help us make better decisions as marketers, as creators. So,
will this video be on YouTube?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think so this is going to be edited down and released on YouTube. And as a company, I mean, I think from a marketing standpoint, we've used Google endlessly, from analytics to YouTube to optimizing the search results to
you buy ads on Google?
We've bought ads a bit. I know you do quite a bit of ad buying, but the ad buying we've done, we haven't seen it be super successful as producers or as financiers. I know lots of, there might be other opinions up here, but for us, in the niche that we occupy in the film space, it seems really, the film space is really archaic, is sort of the most simple answer. So to me, it's how to collaborate with them to create content in ways that 20, 30 years ago we would have looked to the networks and the studios. Today, I think we look to tech companies to ultimately help make those decisions.
Yeah, I think that we share that philosophy as well. Again, working with creators directly, exclusivity does no artist any favors, right? Exclusivity is a driver of piracy. When people can't get what they want, they react. And I think that we see ourselves as a collaborator within this overall ecosystem. If you have an engaged fan base on YouTube, reach them there. If you want to share something complementary or additive on BitTorrent now, then do that and tap into a new audience. But I think all of these platforms will work best when they work together on behalf of creators.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think for us, one question that has come up as we launch a channel on an OTT platform and then launch our own OTT platform, a lot of people sort of internally and within the GoPro community have asked, what's going to happen to your YouTube channel? Because to a degree, we built our content brand on the YouTube channel. I mean, with our surf videos and our skate videos and everything. Yeah. And the truth is, we're never going to get rid of that. We're always going to be part of that for our fans, for our our loyal community. We're always going to stick with that. So I think we'll always partner with Google, and we'll always be part of that community. And as you said, I mean, I think it's more now. It's about sharing with Facebook and Instagram and being able to distribute to multiple platforms. I mean, I think Matt touched on it too. It's like distribute, the old way of distribution and the old way of getting content out there is really pretty close to being dead. I mean, obviously, you still have your jack reachers, which I love, but you still have your old school distribution formats. But I think now you're seeing, especially companies like ours, where you're going to distribute across all your platforms, and you're going to stay partnered with these companies because why not? It just benefits the content creator. So.
Of course, I think it's a no-brainer for music, just the YouTube, how important it is, as far as our distributing our content. I think what's going to be important for the next phase of that is just figuring out, again, what is equal compensation for some of these original content providers, and I'm exclusively talking about your songwriters and producers who are usually left out of that equation. And so while artists get a certain share, or their company does, for, how many times video is shared or liked or commented or whatnot, or put on that platform, they always forget about those other people that are the sole reason why that's even up there. And so, there's definitely some strides to be made over there as far as figuring out what that equal or that compensation is. You have Universal Music Group and Sony Music Group, which are part of Vivo, which kind of helps them collectively bargain what they're going for. Warner Music Group is separate, but potentially that may change in the future depending on what it is. Lear Cohen is now, who used to be president at Warner Music Group, is over at YouTube, heading up a lot of their music industry relations over there. So I think the platform will change. I think there'll be more value for those that are actual content creators, and making sure that while they're using this platform, again, they're equally compensated for their time and energy and efforts.
Well, John, we're going to take him down. Us on Facebook.
I saw that you did a video, right, where the announcement video for Jash was like, we're shutting down YouTube.
Yeah. It's a long time ago. Yeah, they seeded us, so it's hard to, I think, imagine a world where we're ever not close to the hip with them. They are the original channel initiative, which for those who don't know, it was basically YouTube seeding money out to content creators to get them to come onto the platform, to understand the platform, was what gave us life. We came in the second wave of that, and that's really where we built our audience in the early runnings of everything. More on individual comedy or comedians channels than necessarily the Jash channel, which has 5 videos, I think, to its name.
Is there a reason that you're not developing the YouTube presence for Jash? I
have my own beliefs within the world, I think that people like to follow personalities, right? People like to follow individuals, and people like to follow their own kind of niche specialty. Comedy, the beautiful thing about comedy is comedy spans so many different genres, and it spans so many different kinds of mindsets. So the ability to kind of let that happen the way that it would organically happen and build audience in that kind of way has been great. I think that for us, that's a little bit of the next phase, is that now we have this massive library of videos, we have this, all these different shows, and to be able to just kind of aggregate that in one spot for people to be able to watch it. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw us do something like that very soon. But yeah, I think, as far as going forward, it's a massive search engine, YouTube at least, and for Google obviously as well. But on the video side, to have your videos be suggested to someone is always a good thing, especially when you have this platform that has this massive algorithm that is tying your videos to something that someone genuinely might like. Okay, listen, you watch this thing about Norm Macdonald on David Letterman, you might like this show, Norm Macdonald Live, that you don't know exists. It's free marketing, so I think that for us, we'll always be tied to them just because of the nature of our relationship to the incubation of our company. But yeah, we also like Facebook.
Thank you. And Oculus, right?
And Oculus.
Yeah, there you go. No, I think speaking for all content creators, I think the more distribution, the better, right? So the broader the distribution in the VR 360 context for content creators, to move them forward, to give them more exposure, to monetize better. Those are all wins. Obviously, we try to build tools and stuff we think work in VR really well. We try to build tools and support that we think work really well in 360, and we open them up, and we don't, I don't think on a daily basis, say, oh, like that this is a competitive space to sort of like, oh, this content creator comes here or there or something like that. It clearly, Google's got funding efforts and building some stuff, and we have funding efforts to build some stuff. But I think in the broader context, all of this is actually really, really good. And in the VR space specifically, I mean, this is just it's an open field, right? We're just at like I said earlier, like year one of maybe a decade worth of growth, right? So the more that goes out there, the more devices, the more content that's created, it's just going to build that sort of flywheel effect across the entire ecosystem, and that is all a really good thing.
I'm sure there's a lot of questions about VR and 360 video and the applications for it for creators. But let's open it up to the audience. I guess, do we have a mic for the audience, or should I just repeat the question? Yeah? Okay, cool. Yeah, any questions? Right here?
Hi, good evening. My name is Tekjalin, and I actually work for a company that is very much expanding into the VR realm. And is it possible for regular consumers who don't have a device like the Oculus to access 360 content?
Yeah, so 360 content, you can get it through Facebook newsfeed. You can get 360 videos through YouTube. You can get your 360 videos on your phone too. So if you're using the Facebook newsfeed service, you can like enlarge it on your phone. You can move it around. You can tap and spin it. And then the gradient of VR devices is quite a lot. So Google has something called Cardboard, which is basically a disposable device. It's kind of a lightweight. It's really cardboard. You slot your phone in it. We have something called Gear VR, which is a more permanent device that works with the Samsung series of phones, so the Samsung Galaxy line of phones, Samsung Note, and that is $99. And so for a lot of consumers, that's well within reach. And there's frequently, like, we did a promotion with Samsung when they were launching the current Galaxy line of phones that was free if you pre-ordered the phone. So there's a lot of people that have access to 360 in the VR context at a low price. And then you can just see it inside of like a YouTube or inside of Facebook naturally.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we also offer GoPro VR on your phone, so you can do the same thing that Robert said on GoPro VR. I had to plug that out there.
And it's great.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Yeah, in the back? Sure.
Hi, wow, that's loud, sorry. I'm creating a series in VR, actually. It's kind of like a true detective, and I've gotten to experience a lot of VR experiences in LA and other places in the world. And my one problem with it is that it's kind of a one-timer, it's an experience, I go away, there's no way for me as a consumer to go back and get re-involved. And so I personally feel that narrative serialized content in VR is really gonna push and drive this whole field forward and really get people that are not early adapters involved. I'm curious, what do you think is going to bridge that gap between the regular folk and the people that are already gamers and really interested in VR?
Well, I agree with your strategy that more serialized episodic content is necessary. We've already seen the data saying that, right? But it's step by step. It's project by project. But there have been some stuff that's been released so far, both through Samsung and through Oculus. There's more stuff coming. I think there's a project being announced later this month. It's sort of a brand name director, and it's a serialized sort of episode. And I would say most of the major film directors that you can sort of name on your two hands are dabbling in VR in that same kind of way, right? We're kind of past, I would say, the demo effect of VR, which has been like you described. I put it on, it's really cool, it kind of changes my life for a few minutes. I tell all my friends for 48 hours, but it's still sitting on the shelf, right? We're getting past that kind of content, and we're getting into like the repeatable type of content. And we're seeing the audience build. So the statistics in the mobile VR context are very compelling for video and those types of experiences. I would say in the Oculus Rift and the more high fidelity type of VR, clearly like something like PlayStation VR that just launched. I mean, these are more gamer-centric platforms, and there you're going to see games be very successful. But we're seeing video, particularly in the mobile context, be extremely powerful. And the next step is exactly as you described: better narrative content, episodic, make the user come back for more and more and more.
I'm curious how you define VR versus 360 video.
There's a gradient, there's a spectrum, right? So 360 video on one end is just peer pivots sort of shot in 360. And then you add, high resolution, you add stereoscopic, you add binaural audio. By the time you add all of those things, we call it VR. But there are purists that would argue that it's not VR because you can't lean and tilt, you don't have positional tracking. Those techniques will come to video. There's companies here in LA that are pioneering in that space in light field type shooting or multi-camera shooting. So you actually be able to walk around in video. It's quite cool. It's a gradient. I would tend to say pure 360 video, maybe it's not VR, but there's VR users that really, they look at 360 photos and they stay on them a long time. And so it's hard to argue that that's not VR if they're doing it through a VR device.
Cool. Any more questions?
Yeah, Straith, you had mentioned that you consider data access a human rights issue, and also, Robert, you said you wanted to make that VR and Oculus was about making the world more open and connected. So my question was, one, could you say more about what you mean by it as a human rights issue? And in terms of responding to that, for both platforms, are you addressing the idea of having an access for people to make a variety of people in terms of diversity, in terms of gender, in terms of different stories, to be able to bridge those gaps and barriers, to be able to tell a broader spectrum of stories, both on BitTorrent and in VR?
Yeah, I honestly think Facebook is an exemplar of fantastic data and really strong data practices. I think when I talk about data as a human rights issue, particularly impacting the creative class, it's like if you don't have this information, if you don't have a point of contact, if you don't know who your fans are, there's absolutely no way that you can look towards the next project and build effectively and learn how to reach these fans. And I think that's truly the crisis. I think being able to move towards an ecosystem where creators own their fans, where they belong to the artists themselves and not the platforms, is one of the shifts that needs to happen. But I think that's sort of the genesis of the comment.
Yeah, and on the Facebook side, I would agree with the comments on data. We're sharing; it's very open. In terms of diversity and support there, we have specific funding, diversity type funding. There's no restriction on the platform in any way. So, we definitely are looking at projects like when we're going out and we're sort of saying, hey, where can we find a filmmaker or a game creator that wants to do something that's unique and special? We go out and we source that kind of stuff. We really look for it. I mean, we're down in every film festival. We've got people, trying to find and source that kind of content. And some of it ends up being extremely powerful and extremely well liked. And it didn't have some attention and maybe some marketing support or maybe some, funding attention or production attention. Sometimes these things do get lost. And so it's a key mission for us to go and do that.
Yeah, and I think on our side too, the data has borne out investment in the independent community. Looking at over the course of the past year, some of the most downloaded and streamed projects come from really underground and emerging acts. I think the most streamed record of 2015 was from a New York hip-hop collective called Rat King, and that was downloaded and streamed 3 million times. And I think what that tells us is that this is a community that's worth investing in, that the underground is massive, and it's on us as a platform to be able to elevate these voices, to resource them effectively. One of the things that we started doing is building an in-house creative services team that could effectively act as a filmmaker or a musician's marketing arm to help them with content strategy, to help them plot their distribution from inception to final release, and then with the plan to recalibrate and use those emails and use that audience for the next project.
One more question. Right here.
Hi, thank you for coming tonight. It's loud also. So as a content creator, how do you determine the best platform to release your content? What are some key attributes, things to look for?
I mean, it depends, so much on the content. It depends on the thing that you're looking to create. Every platform kind of has its highs and its lows. I think we've had the luxury of being able to kind of experiment and see what does best where. But not to say that you can't. It's not to say that you can't release the same video on multiple platforms, see kind of what's working the best, and then kind of market more towards that video. In general, for us, I think, Facebook has been amazing because it's got a little bit older of an audience, than YouTube necessarily. YouTube is it's a much younger demo, and then you look at Snapchat being maybe another tier lower than that. Amazon is incredibly interesting right now. We just released a bunch of our content up there, and they have this thing that they're doing that is $1 million marketing challenge, right? Where like the best content gets a piece of this marketing fund, essentially. And we kind of uploaded our content up there, like not even really thinking about it. We didn't market it at all in the first month, and then got a check out of nowhere that was kind of a substantive check that was kind of like, what? Like there's you guys are actually like, there's people watching our stuff on this thing, and it never ceases to amaze me because like at this point, like there'll be another person that has some different version of a platform next year that will attract a completely different audience that will be, again, specific to a different kind of content. I think where you can experiment, because you learn things about like, YouTube's algorithm favors watch time right now. So like uploading a longer form piece of content there is going to help you better than uploading a shorter form piece of content. Essentially, like in the last 2 years, you watched animation really fall on hard times within YouTube, right? Like I think there was these animators like Onienji and Psychic Pebbles and Ego Raptor that had these massive audiences built up kind of overnight, and they suddenly all their videos were not favored within the algorithm and got pushed down to the very bottom. When we, on our side, saw talk shows and started to double down more into that because we kind of learned about the watch time piece of it and saw all of our content rise to the top. That now when you search a guest that we've had on our show, our content pops up much higher in that algorithm. So I think as much as you can, trying to be aware of what each platform is starting to experiment with, that's normally the thing that they're going to favor the most. Facebook started messing with live video, and you could tell that was something that they really cared about. And it was like okay, all hands on deck. What can we do with live? Like what shows can we start to mess with live on Facebook? So again, it depends on the content, but then also being kind of in tune with the platform's algorithms is all you can do.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks everybody. Hang around for a while. Thank you to the panelists. The bar is open. Have a drink. Hang out. Meet each other. Enjoy. Yeah, it's great.